I guess while we're doing that, I can start by addressing the elephant in the room. No, I am not Nick Prenger. Nick is currently on an airplane, so I have the keys to the car today, and I'm just hoping to not crash it while we're here. I'm joined by some colleagues of mine to help kind of get us through the next hour or so, and we're hoping to kind of dazzle and delight all of you with the topic that is automations to keep your database clean. So without any further ado, let's get into it and start by saying kind of a bit about who we are. So again, seeing a lot of familiar names here in the chat as we kind of get going. But for those of you who are new to the webinars and to what we do, we are Prenger Solutions Group based in Omaha, Nebraska. But we've got a squad here, including today, from all over the country. So we offer fundraising consulting services. We do annual appeal management. The thing that the people on the call are most excited about is the Razor's Edge database administration, which all of us have had experience in doing. And then also probably one of the neatest things we do and what people I think are really starting to kind of associate PSG with is fundraising automation. More specifically, what we refer to it as is Automate Genius, as we have some of the clients pop up here. Just as we are kind of coast to coast here at PSG, we have clients from coast to coast, ranging from Honolulu, Hawaii, all the way up to Portland, Maine, and potentially by the end of the day, our first Canadian client as well. So we shall see. But excited to do this kind of work, again, as we refer to it as Automate Genius. We're going to talk to you today very specifically about automations that will help to keep your database clean. For those of you who have joined us in the past, we've talked a lot about work that we can do as it relates to gift acknowledgements, work that can kind of help your major gift officers. Today, we're going to focus on our people, right, Stacy? We're going to focus on the DBAs, the people in the trenches who do all of the glorious work but get none of the glory. And so joining us today, we've got some people who know a bit about a bit. We always like to show this photo. This is some of our fans that we've kind of amassed, I guess, right? This is a picture from the BBCon that was in Seattle. We did confirm this week. We have a big group that will be going to BBCon in Philadelphia. So hopefully we'll have the opportunity to meet some of you on the call in person at BBCon in Philadelphia, where we will do yet another presentation, maybe more, and just kind of share all of our knowledge with all of you all. So excited to be heading to BBCon this fall. All right, let's get down to brass tacks. Today, we're going to talk about the life of a DBA. We've got kind of a special guest today who doesn't always get the opportunity to be on some of our webinars, but when people reach out to us, and it truly warms our heart to kind of hear the comments from the webinars and the emails and the social media posts that we get, that we truly get it. And the reason why we get it is because we have people like my friend Lauren Ballew, who actually does DBA work, right? Each and every day, she's working for clients, as we talked about before, doing that database administration. So we're not just talking about things in a matter of what ifs, we're actually doing the things. And because we're able to do the things, and we have so many of us here at PSG that actually do the things that you all are doing, it does inform us to be able to put together content for webinars like this, to feel the pains that you feel, to celebrate the small victories that you celebrate as well. And so we've asked Lauren to join us today. She's kind of the unsung hero. She's my phone a friend. Anytime I'm doing something, I'm like, well, this is way over my skills and abilities. Lauren is usually my first Zoom message, like, got a second, and here we go. So we decided to bring her out today to share her with all of you, where she can kind of talk about some of the challenges that you likely are facing right now in your organizations, and then we'll get into some of the tools that we've developed that can help you maybe sleep a little bit better at night and take away the headaches. So with that said, Lauren, as people are kind of thinking about databases and how to keep databases clean, we got to start with how the databases get dirty in the first place, right? And so do you want to kind of talk us through a little bit about how the garbage gets in there in the first place, whether it's intentional or unintentionally, how some of those things happen?
So obviously the first way that donors are going to get at it is your team is going to add them. And ideally you have a team who is following all the protocols, using the default sets, doing all the things that you have established so that you have perfectly clean data. But you also have donors who are giving gifts online, who are registering for gifts online, days of giving, which are giving an influx of donors, maybe a lot of donors, hopefully at one time, and people who are using tributes who are giving you half of a donor's name or a pet's name or any number of names that don't fit in all caps or no capitalizations, and things just get weird. And thanks to a lot of the built-in features that NXT offers us, we don't have any control over those. So we just get all kinds of junk that comes in the form of data from very well-meaning people. So what we used to do, what I have, some I still keep them. I'm gonna be honest. Here's a confession of the database. I keep them
We
because
all do.
you'll see later that I like to look at them because they're empty. But I have a slew of queries that some of which we've talked about here, but that say what my data should look like. So I have a query that this one is an example of, I want an informal salutation for every donor, or perhaps every donor on the board, or whoever it is. And NXT doesn't care what database view says is required for a new record. So I can require and make any field mandatory that I want in database view. So anyone entering a record there has to follow those rules. And NXT says, I don't care. I make up my own rules. And they come in and they still get saved. Excuse me. So I have my query. I double click into that record, which is really convenient. But now I don't know, is Priscilla married? Does she have a spouse? Does she does have a title, which is great. That part came in, but I have to click over to her bio 1 tab so that I can use the default sets that I have. Do I need to look and see what her gift is? Because does she need a specific constituent code? Click, 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 do all my tabs. Now I've done all the things and we've got her squared away, which is fine. That's totally fine. It's just not super fast.
It isn't. But I understand, Lauren, that there is a new and improved way to address this very manual task.
There is. And not only that, I didn't have to do it. Somebody else did it for me.
Right on. And so here to talk about that is going to be, do tell us more. We absolutely will tell you more. Fun fact, as Stacy gets to talk here about the new way, I jokingly said, you may sleep better. We actually did have a client who did sleep on the job. Ultimately, did not turn out well for them. The automations were able to cover some of the things, but not all of the things. So I encourage you not to sleep at work, even though you would be able to with these automations. Don't do it. All right. So, Stacy, do you want to talk to us about kind of the new way to do it?
So basically what happens now for the same process is I run that query, and I really don't have to do this either, right? Like I'm not not replacing Lauren with me. We're replacing Lauren with a machine that does not need to sleep. So we run that query overnight, find all the people missing their informal salutations, and then we add them. In this particular case, we're also adding a constituent code based on a recent gift, right? And so we, as we already saw, we checked this record to see if there was a spouse and what the spouse's title was, and put the right things on the right records at the right time. And then it fixes everything else, everybody else in that list too. Make sure they all have an informal salutation and whatever other things they need, right? And now when Lauren comes in the morning and opens up this query, there is nothing in it. So she can get to work doing things that require her to use her brain more than just clicking the same things over 20 times or 1,000 times in a row. So.
For those of you keeping score at home, this is a situation where the query that has 0 results is actually a good thing, because so often we run a query and put all this time and effort and energy into it, and then it's like, wait, why are there no results? So the goal was to have 0 results in this particular situation. So, All right. So you kind of, Stacy, as you said, in terms of the automations, much of what we do and do on purpose is have these automations run overnight, right? Because, so many people will complain about, hey, I don't want you to go in there and run these queries and run these exports because it's going to slow down my system and the gift processors are going to be mad. And, the people who are trying to access their dashboards are going to be mad and those kinds of things. And so, again, the automations largely that we build, or for those of you, and we do have many people on the call who come to our webinars more for inspiration. They have Power Automate. They're able to get in there and kind of build a lot of the things themselves, and we're happy to just kind of share where our heads are at and kind of what we're doing, what our clients are asking for. And we've had folks reach out to us and say, hey, thanks so much for the inspiration. They've gone out and built it themselves. So absolutely, if you're in a position to do that, go ahead and do that. But automations that can be triggered by something. So if a gift is entered, that triggers an automation, or an action is entered, that can trigger an automation. Even a new record, obviously, as you shared earlier, Lauren, a new record being created, that potentially triggers, some automations to help as well. The easy button, yes, Staples made it a thing. We continue to make it a thing. So a button that you can click. And for me, I think one of the coolest things is an email telling you what to do, right? So we have a lot of people on the call who are like, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. But like, I don't understand, the how to do things. Just tell me what to do and I'll do it. Right. And so, the first thing that we want to kind of get into from um, just a reality moment, right? A lot of you who have been on this call have heard us talk about the Daily Digest. And the Daily Digest, primarily in the past, we've kind of used as a way to say, hey, like, we're going to create a Daily Digest and let you, the team, gift officers, whatever, know what gifts came in. But we can actually repurpose the Daily Digest to do some additional things as well. And so this is kind of what we're talking about. Stacy, do you want to talk a little bit here about what the Daily Digest can also do?
Yeah, so this is a great example of one that we like to send to people without doing any changes to Razor's Edge, right? Like in the last example, we just updated Razor's Edge because it was easy for us to tell what the addressee and salutation should be, so we just did it, right? But in this case, it's a little bit harder for the computer to be sure whether or not these are the same people. So we had Leonard Miller added to the database yesterday, and we found that there's 2 other Leonard Millers in our system, and we wanted to send this to a live person to check these records and see if any of them are duplicates, and then merge them, right? So it's an example where we found a potential data problem and sent it to the inbox of the database administrator, and that way you don't have to go out to duplicate management and find these people. It's just already in your inbox.
And this is a scenario we were talking about this earlier as a team. So obviously we work with lots of organizations, but we work with a lot of educational institutions, right? So K-12 as well as post-secondary education. This may be an opportunity where you have a student worker, right? Somebody who's got like a kind of a student worker status, that these are the kinds of tasks you may want to assign to them, right? So them getting an email saying, hey, there's 3 Leonard Millers in there. We need you to go in and determine if this Leonard Miller is actually this Leonard Miller or this Leonard Miller. And if so, again, we encourage, if you're going to allow that person to, one, kind of identify the dupe, if there are processes or procedures that you want he or she to be able to kind of do after, create those processes and procedures to actually manipulate it. This part of the automation is really just kind of serving up to you like, hey, we found this potential dupe, as opposed to allowing 5 or 6 months to go by, or you're like, hey, it's summer and I should probably take care of my duplicates that I do once a year. We're trying to keep your database, kind of clean in real time. And so this really allows to do that. I do want to mention, just because I'm seeing some of the questions come in the chat, we do encourage you, if you do have questions, to please drop them in the Q&A. That gives us the easiest chance to kind of answer them. And as we get closer to the end, we will address as many of the questions and provide as many of the answers as we can. But because there's a lot of activity that happens in the chat, we want to make sure that the questions can go in the Q&A section, just that way it doesn't get lost in kind of all the conversation and kind of the affirmation that so often happens in our webinars where they're like, hey, we get each other, like we're amongst friends here. So another scenario here, Stacy, that we kind of utilize this. And again, if you're an organization that has capital campaigns going on right now, we do a great job of letting donors know when they make their pledge, like, hey, thank you so much, you're amazing, this is incredible. it's kind of like they fade into the distance after that. And we really want to make a big deal about them completing their pledge as well. So being able to prompt, the appropriate people, whether it be a gift officer, executive director of development, chief advancement officer, whatever, that pledge has been completed so that you can, reach out to the donor and do those kinds of things. This would allow them to do that. Is that correct?
That's right. So knowing when pledges are completed is not something that's super automatic, right, in Razor's Edge right now. So this is something that we can have automation check for you every night, and notify you or your gift officers or whoever about this kind of a thing. Yeah, just to keep you on top of it without you having to go in every single day and run a query to say, okay, what pledges were completed yesterday, right? So
For sure.
big time saver. And you can do this with tons of stuff, right? So large gift comes in from someone who doesn't have an assigned fundraiser. You can be notified of that. First time donors. Yeah, restricted gifts to a department head, right? Or even opportunity or action notifications can go to a major gift officer, like your stuff is due. And we can also create actions in Power Automate for things that we know we want to do, right? So this is a pledge completion, and we've created an action in Razor's Edge for this donor, and sent this note to her fundraiser, who is Andy, and said,
Yeah.
hey, Andy, Ellen just completed her pledge. Please call her, which he did. And all he had to do is click the link in the email and then click mark complete. And he types his little notes in there. And not only did she get a call the day after her pledge was completed, without anyone having to go run reports or check anything, he also put his action directly into Razor's Edge, and it's there now. So love that.
Which is way more than Andy would have done when he was doing major gift work. I would have made the call, absolutely, because that's what I was supposed to do.
Yeah.
But everything beyond that, it just kind of depended on the day, and what else I had to do. So very exciting stuff. And again, just being able to put that in there. So next thing we're going to talk about is something that we've talked about before, and some people might be like, man, I already familiar with this each record updater. I will tell you, as myself and Andrew Minke, who get a chance to talk to people, this is something that more and more people, as they see it, are very, very interested in. We do a lot of database audits, and so that's something that you're interested in kind of having us look at is to do an audit of your database and to kind of determine what's good, what's bad, what's ugly. We're happy to talk to you about that. But deceased records is something that when we do those database audits, that is one of the ugliest things that we often see. Lots of deceased records inconsistently, people are forgetting to check some of the boxes. And because of that, they're still mailing deceased people. And, internally people are saying, hey, why did we just get this call from this really nasty donor because, we're mailing to their deceased spouse and those kinds of things. And they told us 3 years ago that they were deceased. And yet here we are 3 years later, still mailing to them. So Stacy, do you want to talk again about this?
Notes and it says, we mailed them a condolence card 3 years ago because someone did put that action in.
You are correct, Lauren. One of the actions was mailed them a sympathy card. And here we are still mailing it to them. Like, people on the call right now are laughing because they know that this has happened. So, yeah. All right, Stacey, walk us through this real quick, and I will do the 8 million clicks that it takes to get through these next.
Yeah, there's a lot of things on this slide. So we all have 3 to 30 things that we do to a deceased record to make sure they're out of mailings and all the things, and reporting works. So basically now all we have to do is click the deceased box. And then the automation will go in and make all the rest of the changes for you. So do all the things like inactivate emails, mark inactive no valid address, add whatever solicit codes you need, and constituent codes, and mailing addresses, and active solicitor assignments. Whatever the things are, we can add attributes, we can remove attributes, whatever the things are that you do to a record, we can customize and set up so that it will automatically happen for you. So this is an example of a client we did this for. Nationwide Children's has a huge monster database, and then they did a deceased finder run, and there were almost 15,000, and they were horrified and wanted to manually verify too. So they're going out and looking for obits and then making all those 30 changes to every single record. So prior to automation, they were getting to about 700 a month. after we automated this process to the point where they're just finding an obit, checking deceased, now they're getting through 2,000 records a month, which is a huge increase, and has allowed them to actually get through that whole giant pile of deceased records in a really clean way that they're all really happy with, which I love.
Well, and one of the things that we often talk about is kind of efficiency, right? So because they're able to do things 3 times faster, it allows that same time then that they were previously filling up with doing these to do other things, right? And so often when we talk to people about the automations, it's the automations are going to do the things that really a machine can do. They don't need a lot of human interaction. That's why we're able to do what we do, right? Like we teach the machine and the machine does the things, right? But the machine can't call and personally thank a donor, right? The machine can't attend an event. The machine, can't always write a cute, little postcard or thank you card or, follow up and let people know how special they are for attending the event, right? But because you're not having to do some of these boring, mundane tasks, it allows you to do more of those donor-facing, donor-centric sorts of things, which generally, because you're able to do more of those personalized touch points, allow you to raise more money from the people who clearly love your organization, and that's why they're engaged. So that's really the kind of the proof that automation is doing some things right. It's not necessarily to replace people, and people are on this call thinking, man, if I say yes to this stuff, am I going to not have a job? No, we don't want you to not have a job. We want you to do the job just differently, right? And allow us to do some of the lifting here, or to allow yourselves, as if you're building it yourselves, to be able to do some of the lifting, but then for you to really have more meaningful engagement with your donors, to raise more money, to further engage them, to grow your donor base, hopefully through different activities as well. So next thing, auto tagging your donors. This is, again, kind of the old way was you had to run a series of reports and queries and check and double check and triple check to make sure that people were included or not included. And then you had to go in and manually or globally, add some of the attributes known in NXT as custom fields, to get what you wanted to do. And now none of that is necessarily the case. So Austen, do you want to talk about this?
Sure. So what this automation does is it goes out overnight and it calculates people's giving levels essentially, and it updates a specific attribute in the system. So you can preset, say, gold is $2,000, right? So this person is now a gold member of a specific giving society. And what it really does is it takes that off your plate, so you're not having to be knee deep in data and Excel manipulation once a month to figure all of this out. It just happens in real time.
Right on.
So if someone wants to send an email to all the gold members, they can do that today.
Excellent.
And now you might be asking about soft credits.
Yeah.
And the answer is yes, you can include soft credits dynamically. And so we can see this jumps up their level to platinum because we were able to consider a very generous soft credit in their calculation.
And we do have, some organizations want soft credits, some organizations don't want soft credits. Some organizations, if you're an organization that has individual records, right? So like in one organization that my wife and I give to, Andy has his own record, Kara has her own record, and while I think it's crazy, that's how they do it. And, we're not here to debate that today, but we want to make sure, because we typically give as a couple, that both of our records are being acknowledged, and that when they print the annual report, with the gold, platinum, bronze, silver, whatever, that again, both of our names are included. Having this automation would allow for both of our names likely to be populated, whether we're listed together or even as separate individuals, because we're both tagged in this way, should be acknowledged or recognized on, web publications or print publications and those kinds of things.
And it can even be customized to, like, you want to include cash, but not gift in kind, right? Mm-hmm. So whatever your stipulations are for how you calculate giving societies, it can be accommodated.
So another question that we have been asked is, can you populate the nickname field? And before I go to this very exciting gift that Nick has put in here, Stacy, this is something that we talked about I think for years, right? So when we first got involved in kind of automation, when Blackbaud reached out and said, hey, PSG, we want you to do this. One of the areas we were seeing as we were doing all kinds of parish roster merges with some of our faith-based clients, and just some of the other organizations where they were bringing in external data into the system that didn't necessarily have all of the naming formats, naming conventions. Those organizations found themselves mailing stuff out and it would say dear blank because they were using the nickname field as like their field. And if you didn't have a nickname populated, it didn't have any data to draw in there. So it would say dear blank and blank, or dear Andy and blank, because Karen didn't have a nickname in her, in her field. And it looked really wonky in emails. It looked really wonky in, some of the print stuff that we were wanting to do. And so this is something that you were just like, hey, there's got to be a way. And you were able to allow this to happen.
This was, I think, the first thing that I automated, because this is one of the first queries that I ran every week, right? Because I wanted those nicknames in there for emails. I wanted it to be able to use my default sets and all the things, right? Because it makes the addresses and salutations easier. So yeah, this was definitely the first thing that I figured out how to do, and it's life-changing, right? I never have to think about it again. And I love this baby. He's like the cutest thing ever.
This baby loves hockey. For those of you, and I know we have some folks in Minnesota and definitely in Canada where hockey is like their everything, especially with the Stanley Cup playoffs right now. We decided to drop this one in for you all. So right on. All righty. Moving right along. This is another one that is popular, particularly because graduations are going to be happening here starting in the next few weeks. So Austin, do you want to talk about this automation that we've created?
Yeah, so this is definitely a major pain point for K-12 and college universities, which is maintaining the addressee and salutation on parents and potentially grandparent records to record children and grandchildren's graduation years. And so what this can do is it's an instant trigger, right? So it identifies when a new education record is added to the child's record, and it can go and update parents and grandparents' addresses and salutations immediately in real time. So instead of being something that you have to actively go seek information for and then manually update it through a series of awful exports, data manipulation, import chaos, it just happens and you don't have to think about it anymore. And when you go to pull your next list, it's not a big point of contention that this might be out of date. It just will always be correct.
In real time. Oh,
So cool.
Magical. All right, constituent code organizer, and this is something that for those of you who have jumped on some of the last couple webinars we've done, where we've done really making the leap from database view to web view, we talk about all the exciting things. We also talk about some of the headaches, some of the pain points, and one in particular that we, the PSG ninjas, talk about frequently is the constituent code hierarchy and some of the limitations that exist inside of NXT. So again, automation was used to kind of create a workaround for that. Austin, you going to tackle this one?
Yeah, sure. So what this does is you can use the table hierarchy that you have within the system or set an external one, and the automation just runs overnight for any new or changed constituent to ensure that their constituency codes are always in the right order, right? So that top one that the system identifies as primary and that informs your filters and reports in WebView is always the one that you put the most importance on, right? So we can move from this out of order version into my favorite, clean, consistent, and in the right order.
Nice. Excellent. All right, we've got a few more things to talk about, and then we'll get into some questions and answers. So phone updater is another one, and when we talk about phone updater, we use the word phone loosely because, again, for those of you who have been around as long as some of us have in Razor's Edge, we know phone means phone, of course, but phone could also mean email. It could mean a bunch of just random weird stuff that you, for some reason, parked everything in the phone, fields inside of Razor's Edge. Hopefully there's some people giggling right now because we all know, right? If you know, this is one of those situations. So some of the things that we can use automation to do as it relates to cleaning up the phones, right? Notifies you if the phone is invalid, cleaning up duplicate phones on the same record, right? Where, again, we for the work kind of work we do, we see some stuff, and we have absolutely seen some stuff, right, where there might be 5 or 6 different cell or phone types that all have the same phone number. It's unnecessary, wasted space, and kind of creates more problems than anything else, particularly if you're looking to extract the data out there. It may or may not be included. You might get like 6 lines of data because the same phone numbers and 6 different lines of data or whatever. But specifically, Austin, you want to talk about one of the ones that you've built and you're kind of proud of here?
Yeah, this one was clever. So we always like to talk about this. So what the automation does is it considers the primary address, the state in particular, and it compares the area code of the phone number against this table, right? So we can see here that 315 is a New York area code. So let's say this person lives in North Carolina, right? So we know based on this little conditional that this number is likely not a home number, but rather a cell phone. And the automation can take care of updating that phone type automatically.
Right on. All right. We try to provide little nuggets for you all to take away from some of these. Most recently, we had kind of the cheat sheet of terms and kind of the naming conventions that exist, the difference between database view and web view. Today, we bring you 20 maintenance queries, right? So, Austin, do you want to kind of walk through some of these?
Yeah, sure. So this is just a handful of queries that we look at every week. And most of them could be automated if you wanted to do that. And each slide will include just sort of a little screenshot walkthrough of how to build that query. So in this case, looking for addresses that haven't been run through Address Accelerator yet, or and so the key thing there is the county is blank, so this is in database view. And so we're able to identify those so that we can go run them and get those extra 4 digits and all the extra information we like to validate an address.
Right.
This could be a part of your deceased record updates to double check that all those 30 steps you need to do for a deceased record are happening. And so this could be a way that you could locate recently deceased constituents in order to do those extra steps. Or you can automate it, like we talked about before.
Right.
This is probably my favorite one. So these are all typos that I have found in databases over the years. If you have found different typos, let me know. We're always on the lookout. And what it does is it goes out and tries to find errors in emails before you get the hard bounce back, right? So we want to be a little proactive in finding errors in our emails, and this enables us to do that. And every time I find a new error, I add it to this email or to this query. Yes.
And if you work with the communications department and you utilize this kind of thing, you may have a chance to become their friend. Generally, I know we don't always get along with communications, but in this scenario where we can provide them crisp, clean email lists to do all their marketing magic, this is an opportunity there. So, and then a few more here, I think, right?
Yeah, so this is our last slide on this. And I can't remember which screenshot we included. Oh, yeah. Okay. So double checking that recent gifts are credited to the correct solicitor fundraiser, which is always good if you have live reporting, say in WebView, or you utilize the native dashboards where fundraisers can go and check where they are to goal.
One of the things I really like about a lot of these, Andy, is that not only if we can automate this process, not only did I save the time running the query and clicking the links, but there are a lot of those that, yes, I run a query, but I also fix it via import. And depending on the day and what's been happening, we just had a gala, and now there's 600 new donors that got entered because they all use the QR code and put in their names from their cell phones, and have fat thumbs, because don't we all sometimes? I can export those, fix them in Excel, and import them a lot faster than I can do them manually in database view. But that still means I can't do anything else while that import is running. The nice thing about having it run through Power Automate is that I can keep doing other things, so that when someone comes in and says, hey, how did we do? Can you run me a report? I can do that, because otherwise I'd be saying, actually, no, because I'm updating all the names of the donors who gave those gifts. So I can't tell you the numbers. Oh, I don't want the names. I understand that, but until this runs and completes, my database is otherwise engaged.
I've got 2 blue bars. I have 18 to go, and I don't know if it's going to take 8 minutes or 8 hours.
Yes.
Blackbot will let me know when it's done, right? Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right. I think with that, we're going to get into Q&A. And if you, I see some questions in there, which I think, Lauren, are you going to kind of help facilitate some of the questions and answers here? But if you have not yet had a chance to throw a question in there, again, utilize that Q&A feature down on the bottom of your screen, and we will do our best to answer those questions for you.
If we start at the top,
Yep.
Katie wants to know if we've worked with anything with Power Automate using other CRMs like MailChimp or connector APIs that they have put in.
Yeah. So we definitely have done that. We typically stick mostly to Razor's Edge, but yes, anything that has an API probably can be connected to and do some integrations. Yeah, even inside of Power Automate or other simple ways. So that's definitely possible.
Apparently, Adrian has run into somebody who said, hey, who changed that field? And the DBA just had to go, I don't know. Austen, can we help with that?
Yeah, so there is a thing called webhooks, which are those like instant triggers for automations. They don't cover everything. There are a few known gaps, but you could set up a bunch of webhooks to pay attention to your data and notify you if things are changing. Or my favorite, if someone accidentally deletes something, right? You can get information through that as well. There is a third-party app through Zedman Development called Audit Trail that does exactly that. So if you're interested in an already established app, an interface where you could go keep track of this, I would recommend checking them out.
Elaine asked if all of our pictures, especially the last ones, are database view pictures. She wants to know if we started or if we do the process in WebView. And Elaine, the answer is all of Power Automate works off of WebView. But because it's all the same data, it's changing data that you see in WebView or in database view. But correct me if I'm wrong, Austen. If it's
No,
not
you're
available,
100% correct there.
if
It's all
not
operating
available yet
from
in
the
WebView.
same data source, therefore it works in either location.
But if it's not available in WebView, we can't do anything.
We can't
with
automate
right?
it. Yeah.
Blasting through. Tell me if I missed one, Austen, that you wanted to grab.
Oh, Carrie, I want to do Carrie's.
Oh yeah, Carrie's is a good one because we talked about that.
Yeah, that's a great one for Stacy.
Carrie asked if about spouses when one of them dies, right? So say your primary record dies and you have a partial non-constituent spouse on that record who's still alive. Can we automatedly somehow fix that? So yes, we can. So in the example that we showed you of updating deceased records, what that one actually does is it flips those records. So, which is probably my preferred method for dealing with those people. You could also promote the partial constituent to a full constituent, or you could just stop mailing to them or something. Like there's a bunch of options, but my favorite method is just to flip them, right? So the primary now becomes the spouse who is deceased, and then the primary, and the spouse who's deceased, it gets put on the primary record. And we can do that in the automation so that those records get flipped and they're already ready to mail already. So,
and I think that that's an important piece too, because we have a lot of clients who will say, hey, like, how did we get so many records in our database, right? Like, or hey, we're getting the nasty gram saying we're getting close to kind of like approaching our record band limits or whatever. And for so many, the default now is if you mark a constituent deceased, it's going to kind of prompt you to essentially create a new record for the surviving spouse, move the gifts over and soft credit and those kinds of things, right? So if you're an organization that wants to do that, by all means, but many of the organizations we work with are trying to keep their record band at a manageable level, trying to keep, again, just all of the data at a manageable level. And so really utilizing an automation like this to kind of automatically flip those for you, or even if you're doing it manually, I kind of definitely like PSG best practice, the way to do it would be not to create a new record, but rather to kind of flip the head of household and then make the deceased spouse kind of the secondary record in that situation.
And for those instances, Carrie, where you think this one just needs a more personal touch, particularly like I'm thinking if someone was a board member or they were something and you want to move that data, but you want to move that data, that's a great use for a digest. Like you can say, if they were a board member, they get filtered into a digest and we send them, you get an email if you're the one making those changes. So you can automate something, but still keep your hands on it because computers are not the best yet. They're pretty great, but they're not the best.
Right.
Well, we can automate about 90%, right? You're always going to have those 10% weird outlier cases that is much better for a human to handle than the robot that only has like set conditional logic and can't move beyond that, right? So.
Austin, Andrew wants some clarification on when we say automation, how we're automating.
Yeah, so we're building these in Power Automate, which is an app within Microsoft Office 365. We are able to connect with Razor's Edge through certified connectors, which means your freebie Power Automate license won't really work for this. You need to have an elevated license for premium Power Automate. But the good news is it's not really as much as you think it will be. With a nonprofit rate, it tends to be about $4 per month per user, and you only need one for the person that is building out the automations.
All right. So Jennifer, I can answer her question because it comes to me. How and where do we get these amazing automations, right? So we'll have the opportunity, myself and Andrew Mickey, a lot of times after these webinars, we'll have the opportunity to talk to folks who are interested in learning a little bit more about, utilizing the wonderful Stacy and Austin here, and Angie, all, kind of all part of our Automate Genius team. So generally what we like to do is get on a Zoom call with you and just kind of do more of a consultative sort of thing, talk to you about some of the challenges that you're facing, being able to provide you some kind of examples of some of the other things that clients are doing and kind of figuring out, is this something that, works for you? We talk about, does it work for you now? Does it work for you later? We can get into pricing and those kinds of things. And so there will be an opportunity, and I think we'll kind of pop it up here at the end. And I know when Rob sends out the recording here tomorrow with some of the tidbits, there will be a link on there too, if you'd like to schedule, kind of a one-on-one consultation with either myself or with Andrew Minkey to talk a little bit more about what we might be able to automate, how it would look at your organization. We would be happy to do that. So the next question is, Sandra asked, is there a limit on how many Power Automate flows you can set up for auditing or cleaning purposes? So, are you limited by how many amazing, wonderful automations you might build for a particular, RE environment?
There might be a limit, but we have not run into it yet.
And we built a lot.
Now, the only thing I'll say is I don't think there's a limit. But you'll have to pay attention to how many things you have running and how they might overlap. And so you'll probably have to start out with a really good flow chart to think through all the pieces you want to automate, what you want to change, and how that might affect other automations that you have running.
Right on. Okay. Let's see. We got a few different questions here, I think, from Adrian. Stacy, or I guess maybe Austin, people asking about the difference between Power Automate and Power BI. This is a question that we get asked a lot. Would one of you want to kind of tackle, what the similarities are, what the differences are, so that people are kind of wondering, hey, is this something we have? We don't have. Who do we talk to? What do we do?
They are very different things. So Power Automate is kind of a connector that allows you to ask the program to do things in certain applications, right? So it can do stuff in Razor's Edge, it can get data from other places, it can kind of connect a lot of stuff and do things. So Power BI is a data visualization tool. So it allows you to pull in lots and lots of data from various sources. So that's similar, but then it allows you to create really fancy custom dashboards and reports and things with probably more options than what you have in the Razor's Edge dashboards. So that's the difference. Power Automate does stuff and Power BI shows you stuff.
Excellent. Okay, we had a question here from Christopher. We kind of talked about the notifies you if the phone is invalid. Does this mean in an unusable format? Does it run against any sort of national database? Austin, do you want to kind of talk about that?
Yeah, so the web view identifies phones as invalid and won't let you update them if the phone is identified as invalid is sort of this weird sort of hidden feature of WebView. We've asked some questions and never really got a clear answer on like what is it running against? Why is it identifying as invalid? So I don't really have an answer for that, but we're able to see that a phone is identified as invalid in Power Automate if we try to update it and that action fails. So using the failure of that update action, we're able to create a digest that says, hey, the system identified these phones as invalid.
And you may want to do something about that, right? Or
Yeah.
like remove them.
They might be valid and that's perfectly okay. Just know that the system does. Or they might have a cajillion numbers in them and they're not actually a phone number, which we've seen some weird stuff come through that one.
Right on. Austin, do you want to take care of Kaylee's question there about the pledges?
Sure. So Kaylee asked a question about pledges that are sort of continuously being paid off, right? So a pledge is paid off, but then a donor sends in another check, and so they adjust the pledge and pay it off again. You can build into the automation to ignore those specific pledges if you know that this is likely to happen in the future, right? So you can tag it with a custom field, or we have a client that puts a specific word in the reference, though they have to make sure that that's spelled right every time. But that just sort of gives the automation a heads up of, hey, this is a special case, don't include it.
Excellent. Dwayne asked, oh man, he asked a loaded question here because it depends on who you ask from PSG what the answer is, and we're all laughing right now. Austin would say never. What criteria do you recommend for removing a record from the database? So his example was kind of like no gifts in the last 10 years. Laura, do you want to talk about that?
First thing I'm going to tell you, Dwayne, is that if you ask 6 people at PSG, you're going to get 4 different answers. The second thing I'm going to tell you is that before you do any mass deleting of records is to make sure that you've already put a plan in place, because you can't do that forever. Your records will continue to increase. So if all of your other protocols stay in place, so we're going to assume carefully that you have made a plan and that deleting records is the best thing for you to do. And I would recommend that you not delete anyone who has giving history, because if you're going to run a historical report on the campaign that was run 12 years ago because you're looking to do a soft launch of another campaign, you have no idea how much money was raised, and you can't do a comparison if you delete gifts with records. So I would start with gifts with 0 engagement. So they've never made a gift, they've never been to an event, and you're not actually sure why they are in the database because you can't tell. If you can't tell why somebody's in the database, they'd probably go into it's fine to get rid of them.
You're giving me heart palpitations.
We're watching the people on Team Austin right now. I know one of them had the same educational experience as you had because she graduated, I believe, from the same place. So there might be something there. But yes, to your point, Lauren, you gotta find kind of a happy medium at your organization. And for us, like, I think the thing that we can agree on is whatever you decide, and then stick with it and document it and make sure every single person is on the same page. Because if they're not, somebody's going to get in there and see a record and just delete it. And you're like, hey, like you weren't supposed to delete that until 3 years from now, or, whatever. And I think that, those are some of the things that, again, as we work with organizations, as we do, the audits and those kinds of things, we're just looking for consistency and documentation. And if you do not have it currently, please consider taking the time. Maybe if it's a little bit slower this summer or something like that at your organization, take the time to do those kinds of things. So,
And if you start that conversation, make sure only the appropriate people have access to delete records so that nobody goes rogue.
right on. Okay, so looks like Jennifer, I will make sure that somebody from the team reaches out to you after so that we can have a one-on-one conversation there just to kind of address what we want to chat about. Looks like we've covered most of the other things. I do want to kind of give people a little a hint as to what is coming up. So when Rob sends those emails tomorrow of this recording, we will also kind of let you know that next month we've got a kind of a theme going on here, right? Some spring cleaning. We're talking about automations today to clean up. Next month, we're going to spend the majority of the time together on the webinar talking about how to tackle duplicate records. Again, so many organizations reach out to us and just say, hey, we've got a mess and we don't even know where to start. How do we do this? What do we do? When can we do? Can you do it for us? We get a lot of those questions too, but we really are going to take the time and talk to you about different ways to tackle duplicate management. Obviously, for those of you who are now using an NXT, very different kind of experience and format than for the old timers who are doing it or we're used to doing it in database view. So we will be able to kind of compare and contrast some of the ways, some of the similarities, some of the differences, and those kinds of things. But we will do that. The other thing that was just determined today, and Nick doesn't even know it yet because he's still in an airplane, a future topic that we will address, and this is again just something based on our own experiences and in our conversations with clients. We really want to tackle security groups inside of Razor's Edge as well. We see a lot of databases where there are 12 to 20 admins in the database, and that absolutely should not be the case in any situation that it desires to have a fully functioning database. And so again, we talked about it today at our Blackbaud Ninja meeting, and we feel like we want to put a webinar together for you all just to kind of talk about how kind of some best practices related to security groups within your organization. More and more we're seeing board members or volunteers have access to Razor's Edge, and we're for that, we support that, but again, kind of putting some limitations around what those individual volunteers can do, knowing that they're probably not Blackbaud certified pro, right? So being able to make sure that they have what they need, but not necessarily more than they need. So those are some of the topics that will be coming up soon enough. And I don't believe we have any other questions. Again, for those of you that were kind of wondering before about how to learn more, how to get a hold of us, if you scan this QR code, it will take you to the calendar of myself and Andrew Minke, and we'd love to spend a half hour or so talking about some of the tools that we have that might be able to help your organization. And it's interesting, some of the things that we build honestly work across every organizational type. Some of the automations that we build are very kind of specialized if you're in the healthcare field, or if you're in, obviously some of the things we talked about today, the education field, right? So we're doing more and more things for ticketing organizations. So zoos, museums, orchestras, theaters, those kinds of things, and how we might be able to help you out. So getting an opportunity to chat with us and let us be able to tell you what is possible, which is most things. We have a hard time saying no. So even when I say this, to the team, like, hey, like somebody's asking us to do this, and they're like,